Right up by Green. Throws it back up top. James puts up the three. Oh, it's good! LeBron James from downtown.
Welcome back to another episode of Three Guys on Mic. I'm William, joined by this guy.
Little man.
And we're here with the Week 7 recap. Now, this week was kind of odd, I should say. There was a lot of games that didn't go the way we thought they were going to go. A lot of big storylines coming out of this week. I think there was a few bad weather games. But there's still a few games to take away and something that's big for headlines in the NFL. Why don't you go ahead and start off with your first game?
When you say big headlines, I think this game headlines every other game, in my opinion.
Okay.
The Chiefs and the Titans.
Okay.
You know, as we know, Pat Mahomes has been having the worst year of his career. Quite frankly, I think Andy Reid and those Chiefs are having their worst year since he's been there, right?
Yeah. That's not saying much.
That's not saying much. But the Titans, I think that they're a top 10 team. I think they solidified themselves as a real threat in the AFC, if I'm being honest. Mm-hmm. Because they made this team look like that without the top corners, right?
Yeah.
The D-line hadn't gotten a sack in, I think, the past 3 games, and they just put a lot of pressure on Mahomes. And we all know the Chiefs' O-line got revamped in the offseason.
Yeah.
I haven't seen not one game where they protected him. It's like the Super Bowl all over again. He's running for his life. I'm not putting all these bonehead mistakes on Mahomes, just the ones where he has to protect the ball. All of his fumbles, I think, are on him. But most of all, I think his receivers are not giving him a lot of help. Tyreek Hill has a lot of drops. Marcus Robinson has a lot of drops. McCall Harmon has a lot of drops. Travis Kelce is really the only reliable one, and he can't do everything. I mean, you saw him getting frustrated out there on
I was about to say,
right?
I think that's the biggest thing is that Kelce looks frustrated probably the most by far on that team.
And that's bad because I literally never see him like that. Like, the game doesn't really get to his head like that. So far, the Titans, I think they have an MVP threat in Derrick Henry. I think he could possibly get it this year, if I'm being honest. Now he's throwing touchdowns. So, yeah, but the biggest question with the Kansas City is, do you think they're still a playoff team? Do you think that they could take the wild card spot, considering the fact how their division is now? The Raiders being 5-2 and the Chargers being 4-2, and who are still they're gonna want to come back and punch whatever team they face in the mouth next week because of that loss at Baltimore.
Yeah.
So do you still consider them a team that could sneak into the playoffs?
The Chiefs, yes. I still have them making the wild card, and the reason why I say that is because it's still October. I think it's still a lot of time left, and it's really hard for me to think that this team is going to continue to make those same mistakes, and especially Patrick Mahomes is going to continue to make those same mistakes for the rest of the year. I'm not sold on them anymore for being a playoff contender. I'm not sold on them on, winning. Not sold on them for making the Super Bowl or making a deep run. But I still think that when you have Patrick Mahomes, who's making, again, I think there's something that's good to pull out of this, and it's that you're making a lot of your own mistakes. It isn't like teams are kind of figuring you out, as people like to say. I don't think that's the case. But I still do think that, again, how you were saying, with a lot of the drops, Mahomes just making too many errors, trying to make plays that aren't there. So, yeah, I think this is good. I think they're still going to learn from it. I think it's still really too early to say that they're out of it, that they're done. But, yeah, looking at this game again, I think that the Titans are for real. Again, I was wrong about them. The other night, me and Lil Man we were at our friend's house, and we had a whiteboard, and we were just, writing down our top 10 teams or whatever. And I had the Titans at a number 11. I wasn't really that high on them. I thought they were a really good team, but I didn't think they were a top 10 team. Now I think it's undeniable that you have to put them there as a top 10 team. Again, how you were saying, there was really no one in their secondary that was really there and healthy. Their defense hasn't really performed that well at all this season, but yet they still find ways to win games, and they're 5-2. And again, you're finally getting healthy. Your 2 receivers are coming back to their form. And I think that it's going to get scary. And again, they have a big matchup with the Colts next week.
Now, moving on to the game that Willie tuned in the most to was the Philadelphia Eagles and the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
As you all know, this game was kind of a debacle for the Eagles. Went up 7-0, right? Miles Sanders gets hurt. Not really much going for them after that. Raiders took over, scored 30 unanswered. And the Eagles had a little slight comeback.
Yeah.
They had a slight comeback, right? I don't know why you're laughing.
Good.
But what did you see out of this game? Takeaways of this game.
When it comes to the Eagles, I didn't see a lot, but when it comes to the Raiders, I saw a lot. I saw a lot of things that impressed me. When you look at what happened with your head coach 2 weeks ago, your team just didn't look like they were going. They weren't trending in the right direction. You had 2 losses against the Bears, who are a bad team, and you look flat against your division rivals. But then I think they really had their best 2 wins of the year without their head coach on the sidelines with them. So I do think that it's really a lot to be said. I think when you talk about the MVP, I think Derek Carr has to be in there in top 10, top 5. No matter what, you have to think of his name when you're thinking about that award. But for the Eagles, not a lot to say. Nick Sirianni just isn't coaching that well. Your team doesn't have a lot of talent. And I think even your defensive coordinator is playing he's coaching horribly, having prevent defense the entire game, which isn't gonna work. It hasn't worked the past 6 weeks you've been trying it. Your defensive line hasn't gotten pressure in the last 2 games, and I think that's really the strength of your entire team is your defensive line. If they haven't been doing that, and with Jalen Hurts, again, this offense I think has a lot of talent. They're really young. They can't put it together early on in the game. And Eagles fans, I like how we give Dak Prescott a lot of crap for having empty stats, right? Jalen Hurts, I think he's doing that a lot this year. Again, we're, I think, 3rd in the NFL in fourth quarter scoring. A lot of those games, we're out of it. Defenses just play prevent, and we're scoring a lot. So I think when you look at those stats, I think they're a lot. I think when you look at Jalen Hurts' stats, I think it's not a lot to say. Again, we need to stop giving Dak crap for that, and we have to realize that our own team is doing that. We're not that good. We don't perform well when the game is in hand. So yeah, I just think this team is in panic mode. I really don't. Again, early on in the year, I thought we had hope because again, later on in the year, we have easy teams. If you could really think that, but again, this team just doesn't look good. They don't look prepared. The only time they actually did look prepared was week 1. So I think this team, you gotta just look in the mirror. You have 3 first-round draft picks this season coming up, but with the Raiders, I think they're back on track. I think this team is playing for each other, and I think they're one of the best teams in the AFC.
All right, you saw before, he mentioned how we went to our friend's house, right?
Yeah.
We mentioned the top teams in the NFC.
Yeah.
And who could make a wild card.
Huh.
And I remember you saying that you think the Eagles could possibly make it at the end of the stretch. So do you still think there's hope for that?
No. The reason why I said that the other night is because I said that Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni have yet to be on the same page. I think now there's really no hope of them getting on the same page, especially when Miles Sanders is hurt now. We don't know how long he's going to be out, so I think it's going to be hard. Because Hurts, he did look comfortable when Sanders was running the ball a lot, so I think this team just isn't going to get on track for the rest of the year. I think we're going to string together a few wins at the end of the year, but it's not going to mean a lot.
All right, well, moving on to probably the most surprising game of everybody's Week 7 schedule on Sunday. Was the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, me, I didn't have this team coming in last in the division. A lot of injuries have happened since then. Obviously, the Ravens have been injured. Browns have been decimated with injuries. Yeah. In my mind, I couldn't have the Bengals last in the division. Simply because of all the signings, the growth of Joe Burrow, and the rookie himself. Offensive Rookie of the Year, probably a top 10 receiver in the league as of now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Is Jamar Chase. And I think this is obviously a statement win. This is huge. I think they're the number 1 seed now in the whole AFC. Joe Burrow is playing phenomenal. He had a career in 400 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. They have a top 5 running back, in my opinion, in Joe Mixon, who's balling out. Jamar Chase, not much to be said. But I think they have a top 5 receiving core in the NFL, if I'm being honest. Yeah. And a top 5 defense, maybe, at best. If not, top 6. But as for the Ravens, I think this counts as the same game as what they did to the Chargers. Just punch them in the mouth. I think they'll learn from it. I still think that they might win the division. I'm not sure yet because they still have to play in Cincy. Yeah. And I think that game might come down to it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, when you look at the Ravens, I think there's a lot of games to be played. You still have Lamar, who's playing really, really well. Just with this team, we have a lot of injuries. I think eventually that's going to catch up with your team. Again, they've been playing well. They've been managing those injuries. I think it's 17 players on IR, or 18 now because a few players got hurt. But yeah, and with Lamar, the past month or so has been passing the ball really, really well. But I still think that his kryptonite is to get him to pass the ball. Again, he's making a lot of deep throws. But the thing that he struggles with is the accuracy. And I think that no matter what, running the ball, he's way more scarier than passing the ball. I think that's the recipe that you go with. You force him to pass no matter what. No matter how many yards he throws for. Again, on Monday night, 2 weeks ago, he threw for 400, how much? 428 or something like that?
442.
442. So it's like he threw for a lot of yards, and I still think that's the way you beat this team, is by just forcing him to throw the ball. I think this team is going to be fine once they get some players back. But again, just like you were saying, 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, how they punched the Chargers in the mouth. I think that's the same thing that happened to them. It's the NFL. Things happen all the time. I think this isn't that much about the Ravens. It's more about the Bengals. And again, like you were saying, Joe Burrow looks phenomenal. I think the stat sheet for his entire year doesn't show how good he's really been. I think he has had some bad plays that result in some turnovers. But one thing I have to say, we were all wrong about the draft pick. I think we could all say that Jamar Chase is.
I mean, we said not to worry. It's preseason.
Again, with those drops, I don't think there was anything to worry about. But with the offensive line, early on, the offensive line was struggling a bit, and I was honestly, what came into my head was, wow, like they really should have used that pick on a tackle or a guard or whatever. But now it's like, who cares? Yeah, it's like when you're passing the ball like that, when Jamar Chase when he's making plays going out for 75-yard slants, I think that it's a lot to be said. But points that come to play is obviously this offensive line is handling themselves really well. Joe Burrow looks great after tearing his ACL. Jamar Chase, he honestly didn't look like he had any fear going against one of the best physical cornerbacks in the NFL. I think how many yards did he have? 200 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, a lot of big plays. But the biggest thing is this defense and how this defensive line played. They got to Lamar often. They got to him early. And I think what they also did was that they allowed the Ravens to get their big plays in between the 20s. But when it came to the red zone, you just didn't allow much, and you didn't allow this team to put up points on the board. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a lot to be said. And I'm gonna say it, I was wrong about the Bengals. I thought they were gonna be a fun team. I thought they were gonna put up some points, string together a lot of wins later on in the year. But I didn't expect to see this from them, especially early and often. And I do think that this is top 3 team in the AFC right now. I think they could be even number 1 right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Joe Burrow, still really young, hasn't even had I think he has now had a full year under his belt, full 16 games under his belt. But I think that this team is a team of the future. They're young, and they're going to get after the quarterback, and I have a lot of faith in them.
When we talk about Lamar passing, I felt like as going on, we saw their first round pick finally play. Yeah. And I thought he had a huge impact on the game, Rashad Bateman. Yeah. So seeing him and Marquise Brown kind of fathom together as a good duo in this league, I think that's a plus for Lamar, and I think that's where he'll grow in the future at some point. Yeah. So the fourth game that we have, the last game that we're going to talk about, actually. And the reason why we have this on here is because we still think that this team is a sleeper to sneak into a wild card.
I still think this team is a sleeper.
You still think this team is a sleeper. But in the past videos, I did say, when we were talking about the trades, with the Colts and who they'll get at quarterback because Philip Rivers retired, I literally said, possibly Carson Wentz could be a dark horse MVP. And now he's playing like it. Oh, he has 4 games in a row with 2+ touchdowns and no picks?
No interceptions, yeah.
No interceptions, no turnovers at all. Jonathan Taylor's playing like a top 10 running back in this league. Michael Pittman is finally starting to fathom into a young receiver. And the wide receiving core that we're getting to watch now in the NFL is going to be great in the future. But for the Colts, their defense, to me, is really the only problem I see. They have a lot of injuries in the secondary. I still think their D-line can get after the quarterback. It's just one negative that I'll give them is the secondary.
Yeah, I think their front 7 is up there with the best. I think they're really good. With the Niners, though, what I'm looking at with this team is you don't really have a lot. Again, the reason why I think a lot of people were high on this team, I personally wasn't high because I saw that there was a lot of injuries from last year. I think that Jimmy G, I don't think he's the best of quarterbacks. And the reason why a lot of people are big on Jimmy G is because he's 20-something or whatever as a starter. But a lot of that was when his great defense was in, when his great defense wasn't hurt. But again, this year his defense is hurt again. His secondary is hurt. And I think that this team is relying on their defense to get them out of games and to keep games close. But that isn't the case this year. Again, Jimmy G was hurt, so I understand that. But I'm saying just throughout the whole year, Trey Lance, I think he is the spark plug that you need to go with now because when your team is starting to fall apart, I think that's what you need. You need a spark. But again, he's hurt now too as well. So I just don't see a lot of answers for this team going forward. I think it sucks. It's unfortunate. I just hope this team could get healthy so you can see how they really perform. But for the Colts, Carson Wentz, again, I don't think we should have let him go. I don't think we should have traded him. I think it was a bad year for everyone on that team, not only him. I think everyone performed bad. I think the head coach performed bad. But again, it's just nice to see him playing really well with a bunch of young guys. And his number one receiver hasn't even played a full game yet. He came in last week against the Texans, and he got injured. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team looks when they have a speedy receiver like T.Y. And I think the recipe to win this game is to just give Jonathan Taylor the ball, make him the workhorse back, and then just give Wentz a smaller role. And one thing that did worry me was when he had that fumble in the red zone. After that, he made a few passes that were almost interceptions, and I feel like he was starting to press and just get in his own head again. But I think after a while, he just calmed down again and he started to play his game, and he looks great this season. So I'm really happy to see how Carson is balling out. And this team had a rough training camp, rough start to the year with their schedule, and they have a big game coming up against the Titans at home. So I think there's a really big game for them coming up next week, and I don't think they could afford to go down 2 games to the Titans this year, trying to match them out with wins later on in the year. So big win for the Colts. I think they're trending in the right direction right now. It's going to be interesting to see if they can win the division.
That wild card spot for the AFC is going to be a good lookout, a good watch for sure. But now since we're here, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Thursday night game.
Okay.
Packers and the Cardinals. As we all know, I'm pretty sure everyone's seen the reports already. The defensive coordinator for the Packers has COVID.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest names on there, well, the biggest name, is Devontae Adams. Yeah. He's on there as well. And now, as you all know, I don't know if some of our viewers know, but in the NFL, you have to bring back 2 negative tests before the game, right?
Within 24 hours.
Within 24 hours. So we're praying that him and the defensive coordinator are healthy to be there. But either way, if not, I'm still seeing this as a good game because they have Valdez-Scantling coming back. You still have Allen Lazard, 6'5" receiver, the big target. Randall Cobb, Robert Tonyan, a lot to throw to, right? Aaron Jones. And that's another thing why I think the Packers can win this game is because I'm still not sold on the Cardinals secondary on being that good. I still think it all comes from their front 7 who creates turnovers, batting the balls down, right? Stopping the run, getting pressure on quarterbacks. But I think that this might be their real test. I know they play the Rams, but it's a division opponent. You know them very well. But I still think that this can be their first test. And I think it's kind of tough with Devontae Adams because you don't know if he's going to play or not to play. But I believe it's in Arizona.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and take the Cardinals in this one because I think that the most vulnerable spot on the Packers is their O-line. And the one thing that I said the Arizona Cardinals are good at is getting to the quarterback.
Yeah.
And making them feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, looking at this game, I was kind of leading towards the Packers. Just because of how good they've looked, and one thing that stood out about this team to me is how their defense has looked. They're statistically, I think, top 5 in the NFL. They look really physical without 2 of their best players on the field right now. But I just think the Cardinals are playing too well. I think the trade for Zach Ertz is going to pay off big. Kyler Murray's playing really, really well. And the biggest thing is Kevin King and this Packers secondary, they can't really deal with a lot of top receivers. And this week, they're facing maybe the top receiver. So DeAndre Hopkins, I think, is going to have a really big game. I think Kyler Murray is going to have a really good game. I think the Packers, the way you need to win this game is, 1, getting after the quarterback. And 2, I think it has to be an Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon game. I think that's what it really has to be if Devontae Adams can't play. I think A.J. Dillon has played really well in the past 2 or 3 games. He's a physical young back. And I think Aaron Jones, he's explosive. We see what he could do on any given play, take it all the way down the field. And again, when you have Aaron Rodgers on your team, it's a lot to be said. I think he can make plays out of nothing. So I think I'm going to go with the Packers in this game. I think that no matter what's going on with the COVID, it's a short week on the road. I think I'm going to take the veteran quarterback. I think I'm going to take the better quarterback. And I think it's going to be Arizona's first loss of the year.
I like your take on running the ball with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones because I know we said that the front 7 makes a lot of plays, but that's on the passing end. I still think the most vulnerable spot on the defense is the rushing game. And everybody we've seen them play has had a good rushing attack against them, obviously. Not the Houston Texans, but every team before that has had very good success on doing that. So you got the Packers, I got the Cardinals. We're just gonna see how it all goes down on Thursday.
I think this game, it could pan out to be the best game of the year, and that doesn't mean it's gonna be the highest scoring game of the year. I think it's gonna be the best because I think the defenses can make a lot of plays, and I think the offense can make a lot of plays as well. So yeah, I think that it could be the best game of the year.
Yeah, my take on this game is, if I'm being honest, it's either gonna be really bad for one of those teams, or one team might just pull away towards the end and be a blowout. You know, I just feel like one of those teams is gonna make too many mistakes for them to be so deep that they can't come back from the game.
Okay, that's a fair assessment, but yeah, and I think that this game, if the Cardinals lose their first game, a lot of people are gonna overreact. I think the Packers, if they win this game, I think a lot of people are gonna overreact. That's just how it goes in the NFL, especially when 2 big teams are playing. You look at this week with the Bengals and the Ravens. A lot of people are overreacting to that game. But yeah, I think this week was kind of interesting. It was kind of a down week. A lot of good teams had bye weeks, but it was still interesting. A lot of storylines to be made. Let's hope that the Chiefs could come back and play better. Let's hope that the Colts are trending in the right direction. Anything else you want to say, Little Man?
No, really.
Well, thank you guys for watching the episode. Make sure you guys like and subscribe.
Predictions are coming on Thursday.
Prediction video. Friday. Yeah, prediction video on Friday. Thank you guys. Make sure you guys share. Make sure you guys interact with us. Anything you disagree on, agree on, let us know. Thank you guys.